replication job. So later when we are doing failover, you will see the network configuration will also get changed. So all this you can put in as an automated task. When you select and trigger the process, they will help you to do the rest. So this is good if you are using Vim to perform all this, what we call failover, failback, state, etc. Because when you're utilizing Vim to do failback, we do able to support Delta Sync replication. So we are able to change the direction. For example, utilizing the data change happens in the virtual machine replica, replicate it back to your production VM. So all this can be done using Vim straight away with their own process. We can also support one-click failover with a failover plan configuration that we'll see later. Okay. So let's see. Your virtual machine replication is already done and created. So all your replication is already sending through. Now your replication will be running from time to time, right? So if you are running like, for example, CDP, it will be sending every 7 seconds or every 1 second, for example. Now, because Vim are not here able to support synchronous 0-second RPO protection, so Vim replication will still have some data loss in matters of seconds usually. That's why even though your replication will be ongoing, there will be still certain data change on the original VM that might not able to send over to the virtual machine replica in time. Right? And then over here you will see the original VM goes down straight away, maybe due to hardware failure, etc. A lot of possible causes. And you will find that A1 and F1 data is still sitting inside the original VM in your production environment. Right? So your production VM now is down, data change happens. So this data will consider be lost because you can't bring up the VM anytime soon. Okay, maybe due to hardware issue, etc. Things like this. Now, after the virtual machine is down, we now need to decide. Okay, are you going to use the instant VM recovery or you want to go with the replica failover? Now, utilizing the instant VM recovery, we are running our data from the backup repository. Sure thing, that option will able to help you shorten down your RTO. Your service can come back online, but we might face some performance issue because due to the difference of network connectivity, your disk type in your repository, all those dependency might slow down your virtual machine. Right? That's why most of the time you will see some project we will have additional equipment here to support this virtual machine replica. Now, as compared to instant VM recovery, utilizing VM replica, they are sitting in another set of ESXi equipment. Utilizing the storage system data store or things, they are quite identical to production VM. Okay. And some environment, they even utilize the same sets of hardware equipment that offer same performance. Some lower budget project, maybe we will buy or implement lower level performance equipment, but it is still on par because they are running as original data set. They don't have any DDoS whatsoever things that is going on usually. So if I plan to utilize the replica for failover, what can I do? Now, inside your backup software, when you go to the virtual machine replica, right click, you can select an option what we call failover. So when you trigger a failover, Vim, your VBR software will connect to the DR ESXi. Okay, so this is your DR ESXi. Yeah? Okay, so your DR ESXi is here. So your VBR will contact this guy to power on your virtual machine replica. And they will also create a snapshot before the VM is on so that your new and changed data will happen over here. It will not do any changes to your original restore point. Okay. So utilizing new data here, I can capture all these new data changes, etc. Your replica VM is online and you can able to resume the service in no time. Okay. So using this failover, they can also bring up your virtual machine within minutes, quite similar to instant VM recovery, but they are running in an actual DR equipment with storage system, etc. all this support. Performance usually will be better, okay, as compared to your instant VM recovery. Now, utilizing failover here is just a matter of click. On the infrastructure point of view, although the virtual machine is up, okay, but we need to test the virtual machine replica whether it is working fine or not. Okay? So after we tested the virtual machine replica for services, okay, we don't announce it to the user straight away. We need to test whether this virtual machine replica is stable or not. Okay? Now, if the virtual machine replica boot up, the same problem also happens maybe due to a logical level error, your Windows operating system or application having some issue. The same problem happens here. Then what you can do? After failover, your data need to be tested. So you test to put in some data into the application, testing only. So you will see over here, E1, F2 is your test data. If you found that your virtual machine replica restore point, because you come with multiple restore point, right? Now you found that this restore point is not healthy. I would like to utilize a different restore point to failover. Then you might need to go with undo failover. Now when you select undo failover, what happens? Your delta in the virtual machine replica will get discarded. No changes happens before. Okay? You're basically rolling back the failover process. Your original VM will still be down, yeah? So remember this. So this diagram is a bit weird, yeah, okay, a bit wrong. So when you do undo failover, because your original VM is already down, they will discard the delta here. So if you choose this, undo failover, your replica VM delta will have data loss instead. Okay, that's why if your failover has been done and your virtual machine replica is stable, you announce it has a new VM service, your client already have data changed to it. We do not select undo failover, okay, because it will incur another data loss. Okay, get that here? So undo failover works together with failover. If you found that failover doesn't work, you want to failover with another restore point because your virtual machine replica comes with multiple restore point, right? Then I will utilize undo failover to roll back, failover until I get a consistency restore point. Okay, so I get one running fine, no issue at all. I will announce it to the end user client. Then I will not choose undo failover anymore. Okay, get the idea here. So these two works together, yeah? Any question for failover and undo failover before I move on further? Okay, so no question. Let's move on then. Okay, so after I actually select undo failover, they will go back to original state. Now, later you will see, after I already announced my replica VM to continue the service, your data changes happens into this new delta like E1, F2, for example. Okay, data E1, F2 here is now very important. You do not want this data to get lost anymore. No, okay? And next thing we need to decide. Okay, what's the next step? After your virtual machine replica resume the service, now you see that the virtual machine replica is all running on snapshot. Production VM do not like snapshot to keep on going. So we need to do something to it. If you plan to utilize the virtual machine replica to host your service for a longer time, for example, then what you need to do, first thing, if my original VM, I need to know that whether my original VM will be coming up anytime soon or not. If the original VM, due to hardware failure, you need more parts to actually fix it, you need longer time before it can come online, then we need to select another next step called permanent failover. Okay, So permanent failover is used if you know that your original VM will not be online anytime soon, at least not a short period of time. I need to consolidate all the snapshot inside this virtual machine replica into a normal VM. Then I will select permanent failover. So when you select permanent failover, all the restore point, even together with your new change data and new data, will be applied and consolidated into the virtual machine replica. So they are basically doing cleanup. And then after you select permanent failover, this replica VM will consider be your new service VM, okay? Like your production VM basically. So if you want to protect your data, you should be selecting this replica VM in your backup or in your replication, because your original replication that comes from the original VM will get suspended after you selected permanent failover. Okay? So this is used if your original VM will not be coming up online anymore, or not in a short time. I need to conclude everything to make sure that your replica VM running fine without any snapshot in place. Any question for permanent failover? Okay, straightforward, yeah? Okay, so now, this permanent failover can also be used if you are trying to perform virtual machine data migration, okay, from one side to another. Okay? So if your environment okay, will be the usual case whereby my original VM is just down for a short period of time, maybe due to certain schedule maintenance, etc. And you know that it will be up again after maybe a few hours or one day, then maybe it's a better idea to keep your virtual machine replica in failover format. Okay, so that I can select another option here called failback. So when do I perform a failback? If your original VM is now fixed, maybe due to hardware issue, etc., the original VM is now ready for me to test whether the service can be up or not. Okay, so you can test it out first by manually powering on, or you can utilize Vim here to perform a failback. Okay, so when you select Vim to perform a failback, what happens? I will actually replicate all my data back from the virtual machine replica into the original VM using this failback snapshot. After all the data transfer over there, they will then consolidate into the original VM and put it out. Okay, so failback is to reverse replicate your data back to original VM, make sure there's no data loss, and then power it on again. So failback will require downtime also. Okay, so failback, they will perform one replication, first thing. This can still be done, okay, when your virtual machine replica is online. Now they will perform two times. The last replication run, they will shut down the replica VM to make sure all data has stopped here, no changes anymore. They will replicate all the data back to original VM and make sure no data loss happens yet. Then they will bring up the original VM to run. Okay, so this is what we call failback. So you don't need to manually log into the ESXi machine or vCenter to perform all these tasks. Vim will able to help you to do this. Okay, so failback. Pretty easy. Reverse your replication, then bring up your original VM again. Now, you see that failback here. We are utilizing original VM. And after failback, you found that the original VM is not working fine. Maybe still has some minor issue, etc. that you want to fix it. And it will actually affect your services. Then maybe it's a good idea for me to roll back, utilizing the virtual machine replica here to actually continue the service before I rectify the problem here in original VM. That's why we can select what we call the undo failback. Now, when you select undo failback, remember, okay, this guy will have original VM data change loss. So if you select undo failback, all the data that actually got returned to the original VM for testing purpose, for example, will get discarded. And that's why if you perform failback already, it's best to also test the virtual machine before we actually announce as a service again. If not later, if you select undo failback, what happens? Your changes to the original VM will discard. They don't take it important anymore because you select undo failback. Because any data that you change on the original VM, later when you trigger failback again, they will all get updated by this virtual machine replica to the original VM again. Okay, that's why undo failback, similar case, is used to test your original VM status. If your original VM is running fine and they already have new and changed data going on, do not select undo failback. Right? So they will cause certain data loss here. Okay, pretty easy for undo failback. Any question for failback and undo failback? Okay, so now after failback, tested, virtual machine running fine, no issue, and you will see that over here, if my replication here is still in failover or failback state, your replication original job will not be able to run because you're still in recovery status. They have a higher priority. So after I perform failback, you need to select another option, what we call commit failback. So when you select commit failback, your virtual machine replica new delta here will be changed as the latest restore point. Okay, so this earlier delta for failover, for example, okay, failover will be changed into latest restore point. So this restore point will be used to compare with your original VM for any new or changed data that added, and then replicate the incremental data changes to the virtual machine replica. So when you do commit failback, they are basically bringing your status back to original state, and your replication will able to run like normal again. All right. So this is to conclude everything, and then they will go back to original state where your replication job can able to continue. Okay, so this is commit failback, pretty easy. So you need to understand all these steps. In the exam, they will also ask you some question about which particular status that you should select first if you plan to fail back your virtual machine. So your VM is already in failover state, right? If you want to fail back, which option that you should choose? You choose fail back first or commit failback first? We need to switch our state from failover to failback, right? So after failback, only we select commit failback. So this will be the steps. So you need to be very careful here. Okay? So in the exam, the answer will have commit failback and failback. So which one to choose first? We failback already, then only we commit failback. Okay? So these are the steps. Okay, so for the failback options, we have issue earlier whereby when we trigger the failback task, we are very hard to schedule a downtime for it because your failback separated into two replication process. The first replication run will send majors of data change back to original VM first thing. Okay. Now the first replication run, they do not require your virtual machine replica to be powered down. Okay. It will only be shut down when they actually trigger the last replication run to send the remaining data change that happens on the replica VM. Now the first run will require more time. Okay. And if you did not have this new feature here, what we call flexible failback, in V11, we are very hard to actually schedule a downtime for that. Yeah, because we do not know how long we need to transfer the data back. Only the second phase will actually comes in. So now in VMware replication, only supported in VMware for this currently, new in version 11 what we call flexible failback. So when you trigger flexible failback, okay, over here you will see by default, original failback is what we call automatic. So they will run the second replication, shutting down the replica VM automatically straight away. So this is the problem. Sometimes we are very hard for us to schedule the downtime. If you schedule starting the task, it will be longer time required. So over here, we have the manual options or schedule option. So usually I will prefer manual. Wait until the first replication run is done. Then we schedule downtime for us to shut down the replica VM and then perform the last replication run. Okay, so this will easier for you to plan the downtime. Hyper-V do not have this feature yet. Okay, so if you go to my backup software, I already pre-configure my replication now into flexible failback. So you will see here, after I trigger flexible failback, your particular replication will now start to send data from your replica VM back to original virtual machine. And this first run usually will take longer time because you already run your virtual machine replica for maybe a few hours or a day. They have a lot of data changes going on. They will require more time to transfer. But this replication run does not require your virtual machine replica to be shut down. Okay. So after this is done, you will see that over here, VM has been synchronized with replica VM. Then you will see last line. Okay, now the virtual machine is ready for me to switch over. Okay, but you will see that over here with this running already done. Just a moment. Okay, my VMware environment. You will see that these are the virtual machine that I am using it for testing. So this is my original VM. This is my replica VM. Okay, so you will see the original VM is still powered down. The replica VM is still up because I still did not trigger the second task. Now if I trigger the second task, okay, so over here, close. If I select this under replica active, yeah. Okay, right click. If I switch over to production now, manually. Okay, so what happens? So when I right click switch over, yes, then Vim will help you to start the process. They will help you to power down the replica VM and initiate a last replication run to make sure there is no data loss before they boot up the original VM. Okay, so you will see this task will be automated by Vim to help you. Okay, so you will see here now the replica VM now will be power off and they will start to replicate your data. So this is when the downtime actually comes in. So if you check my virtual machine now, you will see now only both VM is down. So it will be easier for you to plan your downtime. Hyper-V sadly does not have this feature yet. I'm waiting for it because some of my customers require this to run. So you will see now after replicator has been done, the original VM will get boot up. So all this is done by actually your Vim backup software, as you can see here. Okay, so after I replicate the last run, which is smaller data usually, so this process will be shorter time. So your downtime will be able to minimize and they will power on your original VM. Okay. So with this, you will see that your downtime is easier to manage. And after I done on failback, I need to perform some testing on the original VM to make sure it is working fine. So if it's not working fine, I can select undo failback. If the original VM is okay, no issue, I will then commit failback. If not, my replication task will not able to run again. And this is a CDP replication. So the process basically looks the same. All right. So the process, they commit failback action. They are just cleaning up all the things in the virtual machine replica, etc. Commit failback do not require downtime. Okay? Only failback will require downtime for you to switch over. Okay. So switching coordinator to CDP mode. So after this is done, my CDP replication will able to continue again. Okay. So this is the process to actually fail over and fail back. Okay. So this is new in V11, only supported for VMware replication. Yeah. Okay. Hyper-V do not have this. Then you see that failover using CDP, we have these additional options. So when you select CDP replication to failover, I have another additional short retention with second level RPO, right? So if you are doing this failover, okay, if you're doing this failover, you see over here, if I right click my CDP, here in my replica, if I right click this guy, failover, I can select the restore point. So when you click on the point itself, I can select below. It will be by which date. This is the long-term retention. So on top here, you will see restore to point in time. This is short-term. So short-term here, I'm doing every 15 seconds, right? So if I select here, you will see I have this point in time. So you will see that using the arrow button, I am able to change my restore point in every 15 seconds. So you will see that to keep your data for 1 to 2 hours, you will have a lot of different restore points that you can actually roll back or fail over to. Okay, so this is very, very important to use arrow key to facilitate the selection for you. Okay. So this is the CDP failover with arrow key, easy for you to select your point in time. Yeah. Okay. So lastly, we have additional things here called the failover plan. Okay. So just now, all the failover things that we discussed is based on a per VM level. Meaning to say, if you want to trigger the failover task, I need to select every one single VM to do this. Now, if you have dependency or a group of virtual machine that requires to fail over, I can create this failover plan to put in my virtual machine startup sequence, which virtual machine should start up first, and I can even put in a delay interval start time in between virtual machines. So you can define all this as an automated plan. I will fail over based on the plan itself, and they will follow whatever sequence they are putting into the plan itself. So later when you perform your lab, you will have this configuration for you to play around and look into it. Okay. Then lastly, I have another additional thing here called plan failover. Now, do not confuse between these two here. Okay. Failover plan here is to create an automated plan for your actual failover to run. Okay. That comes with multiple VM here. So this is a plan that requires to pre-configure. If your actual disaster comes, you will utilize them. Okay. Another thing, what we call plan failover here, this guy is designed for plan event. Okay, what do you mean by plan event? Pretty easy. You plan for scheduled downtime for maintenance, software upgrade, all these things, and you want your service to continue using on your virtual machine replica. Or maybe your electricity provider telling you that, okay, next month or next week, your data center will have power maintenance. Okay, you will be shutting down all the things for maybe 1 to 2 hours, and you want your service to still continue to run in DR. Then I will select this plan failover. This is designed for plan event, meaning to say your original VM is still running fine, no issue. If I select this option, the benefit here is to offer no data loss failover option. Okay, because earlier when we performed the normal failover, your original VM goes down straight away without any notice. We will incur data loss there, right? If you choose this, Vim will help you to actually replicate all the data to your replica VM without data loss, okay, before we actually turn on everything. So you will see here, the process for plan failover is a bit different. Okay. You need to make sure your original VM is running fine, replica VM is reachable. When I trigger plan failover, what happens? I will perform one replication run first. So this one maybe take longer time because major data will be sent. Then after this run, I will shut down the original VM. You see here, shut down the original VM and perform last replication run. This is to make sure your virtual machine replica will have no data loss when they take over the service. Now, when you plan failover here, your original VM will need to down for a short period of time. So there will be downtime incurred, but no data loss. Because they will replicate all the data to your virtual machine replica before powering on. So the switchover requires some time. Okay? But this is good because I'm able to fail over to the other virtual machine without any data loss incurred. So this is only designed for planned event. Okay, so 1 or 2 days before you actually run this, before the actual event happens, then you're able to secure and resume your service until your original equipment is up again. After maintenance, I can perform failback, all these things. Same thing here. Only difference will be the first failover process. Okay? So planned failover can only apply to individual VM. Yeah? You cannot utilize plan failover on failover plan. Okay? Okay, so you see here the comparison. Replica using normal replication and CDP. CDP do not able to support plan failover, so you have limitation like this. Okay, so if you want to use this, then you might need to utilize the normal replication option to do that. Sure replica, ensure backup job is not supported for CDP. FLR that we covered earlier, they can also use in your normal replication, but not CDP. Okay? Cloud Connect Infra, same thing, does not support CDP currently. Any question for replication that you want to ask before we move into the lab?